These two particles have some radius vector. Also, these two particles have some velocities v1 and v2, and after some time these two particles collide. So our motto is to find out the correlated or interrelated for these four vectors for these two particles collide. Now let's see the problems in general physics by I.E. Irodov. Also this problem solved by animation. We will see for each and individual problems for one animation so that we can easily understand the problem's concept and also conceptualize the problems and make solution. Now let's see the problem. So two particles 1 and 2 move with a constant velocities v1 and v2. At the initial moment, their radius vector are equal to r1 and r2. So there is a four vectors. One is the v1, another is the v2, and this is the r1 is a radius vector and r2 also radius vector. So how must these four vectors to be interrelated for the particles to collide? Okay, पहले हम लोग प्रॉब्लम को अच्छा तरीके से समझ लेते हैं, उसके बाद हम लोग धीरे धीरे कॉन्सेप्ट बिल्डअप करेंगे, से फिर हम लोग एक बार एनिमेशन देखेंगे, फिर इस प्रॉब्लम को सॉल्व करेंगे. सो यहाँ पे क्या है, टू पार्टिकल्स दिस 1 and 2 and these two particles have some different velocities. This is the v1 velocities and that is the v2 velocities. Okay, and this radius vector also have these two vectors. One is the r1 radius vector, another is the r2 radius vector. So हम लोग अभी क्या करना है, ये जो चार वेक्टर है, ये जो चार वेक्टर के साथ इंटररिलेटेड निकालना है कोलाइड्स का, कोलाइड का इंटररिलेटेड हम लोगों को निकालना है. तो पहले देख लेते हैं क्या थ्योरी और क्या इक्वेशन इस प्रॉब्लम को सॉल्व करने के लिए हम लोगों को जानना जरूरी है. दिस इज द फर्स्ट इज द ट्रायंगुलर लॉ ऑफ वेक्टर एडिशन. This is the two vector are represented the two sides of a triangle. Okay, so these two vectors are represent what, not two sides of a triangle. Then the vector sum is the third side of the triangle. This one is the third side of the triangle and also opposite direction. Okay, now let's see. We can say this vector A plus vector B equals to resultant vector R. Now let's see again this animation so we can easily understand the problems. So these are two particles is moving for v1 velocities and another is the v2 velocities. Okay, now you see here, so this is the r1 is the radius vector for this point 1 and r2 is the radius vector for this point 2 and this v1 is the velocity vector for point 1 and v2 also this velocity vector for point 2. So after t time, these two vectors these 2 points actually collide at point A. Okay, now what we have to do, we have to find out the all these four vectors, means is v1 v2 r1 r2 interrelated for collide. Now let's see, we have draw down a vector separately. So this is a R2 vector. This is a R2 vector. Okay. Actually, this is a R2 vector, and this is a V2 vector, and this is the resultant vector R3. Now, what we can write down? This is actually V2 is the velocity. We have multiplied by the time t, so that we can easily get this line. This line means this vector line is the V2 into time t. This one. Also, this particular line for this vector is the V1 into t. Now I think everybody can understand. Now this resultant vector is the R3 vector. Also for these two vectors, this R1 and also this V1 into t vector, is resultant vector is the R3. Okay. So this R3 resultant vector is common for this R1 and V1 t vector. Also this R2 and V2 t vector. Okay. Now we can make an equation here so that we can easily find out the interrelation of this four vector. So this time is the t. Okay. Now we can write down here this R3 is the resultant vector equals to this first is the R1 vector plus this V1 vector into t. And second also this R3 resultant vector equals to this is the R2 vector plus V2 vector into t. Now we can easily say, so this is suppose equation 1, this is suppose equation 2. So this equation 1 equals to equation 2. Now we can easily write down this R1 vector plus V1 vector t equals to R2 vector plus V2 vector t. So this R1 minus R2 vector equals to V2 t minus V1 t. Now we can easily find out this is also suppose this is equation A. So now we can easily find out the time t. So this time t equals to R1 minus R2 divided by V2 minus V1. And this should be mod. These all are vector. So this time is the scalar rashi. So this should be mod. Now this is the equation B. Now if we apply this time with this equation A, now we can easily find out this R1 minus R2 equals to V2 minus V1 into this one. This R1 minus R2, it should be mod divided by mod of V2 minus V1. So this R1 is all our vector minus R2 divided by mod of R1 minus R2 equals to V2 minus V1 divided by mod of V2 minus V1. Okay. So we can easily set. So this is our interrelated of these four vectors. Now we can again easily prove these problems, or we can make easily these problems solution by another way. So we can say this is the method 2. This is a method 2. By this method, suppose it's a 1 and 2, and these two are moving and meeting a point. So this is a V. So we can easily say, so this is also this vector triangular law. Now suppose this 2 point is moving, but if we relative velocity of this point 2.1. Now you see here. So if we say this relative velocity of this point 2.1, then we think this point 1 is fixed and this point 2 is moving in this direction. In this direction. Okay. So what happened? This location vector. These are radius r1 vector and radius r2 vector. These two vectors also moving. एक्चुअली व्हाट हैपन, इस दोनों वेक्टर का फिर डिस्टेंस कम हो रहा है, क्योंकि ये पॉइंट 1 और पॉइंट 2 जाके एक टाइम के बाद वहीं पे मिल रहा है, एक पॉइंट पे मिल रहा है. सपोज दिस पॉइंट इज द ए, बट इफ वी सी दिस पॉइंट 1 इज द फिक्स्ड एंड दिस पॉइंट 2 इज मूविंग, उसमें क्या होगा, इसका ये जो लोकेशन वेक्टर है वो भी मूव करेगा, क्योंकि ये जिस लोकेशन वेक्टर इस दो पॉइंट का दो लोकेशन वेक्टर है. तो इस जो लोकेशन वेक्टर है, ये दो लोकेशन वेक्टर ये सेम होगा, बट दिस पैरेलल, बट क्या होगा, इसका नेगेटिव होगा, मींस एंटी पैरेलल. एक के साथ एक पैरेलल है, किंतु एक वेक्टर दूसरा वेक्टर का नेगेटिव है, ऑपोजिट डायरेक्शन में. तो ये एंटी पैरेलल है. तो हम लोग क्या कर लिख सकते हैं, ये जो इसका जो ये जो 2 पॉइंट्स आर मीटिंग, ऑल्सो इसका जो पोजीशन है, पोजीशन ऑल्सो डिक्रीज दिस साइड. तो हम लोग क्या बोल सकते हैं, ये जो 2 वेक्टर इज द पैरेलल है, बट क्या है ना, एंड नेगेटिव. Now you see here, if we write down by this way, so this V21 equals to V2 minus V1. Again, if this R21 vector equals to R2 minus R1. Now हमने क्या बोला है, ये पैरेलल है लेकिन नेगेटिव है, तो हमने ये लिख सकता है एंटी पैरेलल है. तो दिस V2 minus 1 वेक्टर क्या होगा, R122 वेक्टर होगा, क्योंकि ये पॉइंट 2 1 का तरफ जा रहा है. सो इसमें क्या होगा, पॉइंट 1 का जो लोकेशन है वो 2 का तरफ आ रहा है. सो दिस इज ऑपोजिट बट पैरेलल. Now we can easily write down this V221 unit vector equals to minus R221 unit vector. Okay, so this should be a minus sign, so opposite direction is there. Now we can easily write down this V2 minus V1 divided by this unit vector, means mod of V2 minus V1. Okay, so equals to, it is a negative, so R1 minus R2 divided by mod of R1 vector minus R2 vector. So this is the another way we can solve the problem very easily. So thank you.